Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices and tremendous fraud. Donald Trump falsely, knowingly, inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself.
Donald Trump spent decades creating an image that appeared far bigger than reality itself. He branded himself as the ultimate billionaire businessman who always won bigger, built bigger, and thought bigger than everyone else. But according to Letitia James, that powerful image may have relied on financial numbers that shifted depending on who was reviewing them. Once investigators started examining those figures, the entire narrative surrounding Trump began to look completely different and far more controversial than before. Letitia James accused Trump and the Trump Organization of repeatedly inflating property values to secure favorable loans, insurance deals, and major financial benefits, while allegedly reducing those same values when it came time to pay taxes. In simple terms, the properties seemed to expand or shrink whenever it financially benefited Trump the most.
Comments were offensive, they were baseless, they were void of any facts and/or any evidence. What they were comments that unfortunately fomented violence, and comments that I would describe as race baiting, and comments, unfortunately, that appeals to the bottom of our humanity.
And that is where the situation stopped sounding like political drama and started sounding like a major credibility crisis, because this was no longer about one accidental mistake or one exaggerated claim. According to the case, it reflected a long-running pattern involving financial statements, asset valuations, and years of business practices that raised serious questions about how the Trump brand truly operated behind closed doors. Investigators argued that these actions painted a misleading picture of wealth and financial strength for banks, investors, and business partners over many years. Trump's defense responded aggressively, insisting that real estate valuation is highly subjective, constantly changing, and often depends on market conditions, professional opinions, and economic timing.
Letitia James, the money was put up, it's $175 million, and I don't think she's complaining about me for the first time ever. She's complaining about the company. She's questioning the bonding company. Well, when you put up cash and the number is 175.
And that part is true to a certain extent. Property values can rise or fall depending on market conditions, timing, negotiations, investor demand, and economic uncertainty. But prosecutors argued that the differences in this case went far beyond normal business flexibility and standard real estate practices. They claimed the valuations were not simply optimistic estimates, but were deliberately manipulated in ways that crossed serious legal and ethical boundaries. As investigators and financial experts examined the numbers more closely, the contradictions became increasingly difficult to ignore, and the overall credibility of the business practices faced growing public scrutiny and criticism.
Donald Trump may have authored the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal. This long-running fraud was intentional, egregious, illegal, and he did all of this with the help of the other defendants, his 2 adult sons, and senior executives at the Trump Organization.
What made the situation even more damaging for Trump was the way the story escaped the courtroom and entered mainstream culture and public discussion across television and social media. Jimmy Kimmel took complicated financial allegations and translated them into something millions of viewers could instantly understand and react to emotionally. He transformed complex legal language into sharp public ridicule, exposing the irony of a billionaire constantly presenting himself as a financial genius while facing accusations that his business empire relied on exaggerated numbers and misleading calculations. That combination became especially dangerous for Trump because legal pressure is one challenge, but widespread public embarrassment creates an entirely different level of damage to a public image. Once late-night television started turning financial controversies into simple punchlines, audiences began paying attention in a completely different and far more personal way. Kimmel repeatedly highlighted contradictions in Trump's image, questioning how someone who constantly bragged about business brilliance could face allegations centered around misleading financial statements, inflated wealth claims, and disputed property values. The reason those jokes resonated so strongly is because they touched a deeper fear surrounding the Trump brand and its carefully crafted public image. What if the image had always been larger than reality itself? For years, Trump sold confidence as proof of success and convinced millions that visible wealth alone represented intelligence, influence, and power. But Letitia James forced people to look beyond branding slogans, television appearances, and luxury marketing to examine the financial paperwork underneath everything. Once that happened, the entire public conversation shifted dramatically. Suddenly, people were not only debating politics anymore. They were debating credibility, honesty, accountability, and whether Trump's public persona had been carefully built through exaggeration repeated so consistently that many eventually accepted it as unquestioned truth. James argued that ordinary Americans are expected to follow financial laws every single day and that billionaires should not receive different treatment simply because they are wealthy, influential, or famous. That message connected with many people because at the center of the entire case stood a simple idea most Americans immediately understood. Financial numbers should not tell two completely different stories at the same time. If a property is valued one way for loans and another way for taxes, eventually people are going to ask difficult questions about why those differences exist. According to prosecutors, those questions uncovered a much larger pattern of deception hidden behind luxury branding, towering skyscrapers, celebrity status, and carefully managed public confidence. Trump, meanwhile, continued framing the investigation as a politically motivated attack designed to weaken his reputation, damage his public standing, and influence public opinion against him before future elections.